Hey everyone, welcome to the Cardboard Hobbyist. I'm Quinn, and if you're just getting into trading cards or coming back after many years away like me, you're in the right place. So I've learned quite a bit in the last 6 months of getting back into the hobby, and a lot has changed. Grading, breaks, high-end chases. I'm totally overwhelmed sometimes, even studying it as much as I have. But really, I've realized that at its core, collecting's still about the same thrill of ripping a pack, finding a hidden gem, and just having fun. And that's why I'm in it too. So. This podcast is for the everyday collector, whether you're in it for nostalgia, the art on the cards, the history, or just the fun of the chase. I'm going to help break down some of the ins and outs of today's card market, try and get kind of cut through some of the hype and fear of missing out that happens a lot of the time. I will be sharing my own journey as I figure it all out too. What's worth buying, what's worth grading, how to avoid some common mistakes in the hobby, especially for those just getting started. Plus, we'll talk about the best ways to enjoy collecting without breaking the bank. There's a lot of money in this hobby, but you don't have to have a lot to be in the cardboard hobby. So if you're ready to dive in, stick around. I've got a lot to share, and I'd love for you to be part of the conversation. So hit subscribe. Let's build a hobby that actually means something again. Since this is the first episode of Cardboard Hobbyist, I want to take a minute to share my story, why I got into collecting in the first place, why I left, and what brought me back in the last 6 months. Like a lot of people, I started collecting as a kid. I remember digging through packs, hunting for my favorite players, trading with my dad and my brother and friends. But obviously, somewhere along the way, life, school, and work got in the way and it just kind of faded out. I'm sure that sounds familiar for most of you getting back into the hobby, especially us older millennials. So fast forward to now, and I've found myself drawn back in. Uh, a little bit of nostalgia, which I'll get into on my old cards coming back and me flipping through them. Seeing some of the old cars show up online when I started doing a little research. But once I started looking around, I realized this is not the same hobby I left behind or even actually knew as a child. My days of hobby collecting were probably between 8 and 11 years old, and I didn't know anything that was happening in the hobby then or now, other than my favorite cards. So that's what this podcast is all about, helping people like me and maybe you navigate the modern collecting world without getting lost in the hype. Let's go. So if you are just coming back to the hobby, it looks a lot different than it did years ago. There are a few big changes that might surprise you, or at least you maybe didn't know about. So here's a few. Grading cards is huge now. And if you were like me, you don't even know what grading was. If you've started trying to get back into the hobby, you're seeing a lot about grading, but slabs weren't as big back in the day that I was collecting. And even if they were, I didn't know about it, and I really don't think it was like it is now. They can definitely make or break a card's value, whether you're looking at your junk wax cards, vintage cards, modern cards. They make a huge difference, and it's kind of all the rage right now. So you've probably heard PSA, BGS, SGC, CGC, Tag, a bunch of those. Some of those names matter. They're not all equal, and we'll cover those in future episodes. The other area that's really changed are breaks and high-end cards. You've probably seen them online, YouTube, Instagram, those live break boxes or box breaks where everybody's chasing huge hits. They're opening boxes, they're opening cases of boxes just for those certain cards, and then they celebrate that card and everything else gets kind of ignored and set off to the side, so it's kind of wild. It seems fun. I love opening cards, but it's also turned into a bit of a gambling scene. Everybody's in it for just those big cards. You're spending a lot of money to chase down that big card. They make it look easy online. It's not as much at home unless you want to put a lot of money into it. So it's an interesting aspect of the hobby now. Also, hobby versus retail, finding packs at your local store, not as easy as it used to be. Everything's selling out right now. We're kind of in a spike again, kind of like the junk wax era. It's kind of all the rage again. And it's hard to not overpay. So, your local card shops, your LCSs are sold out a lot of the time or sell fast. There's scalpers, there's flippers that are buying boxes and cases and buying Costco out. You've probably seen some videos of everybody just running into Costco and taking all the Pokemon boxes and stuff. It's pretty wild. So we'll talk about where to buy cards without overpaying, or some strategies I've been exploring on getting cards. And then the last big change that might surprise you is flipping and investment talk. As a child, we joked a lot. Oh, I had a couple of these boxes, 1990 Fleer, and I don't know. I had 89 Dawn Rust box or something, and I kept them in the wax packs. I kept the boxes. They were going to be worth some money, and they're not. They weren't an investment. But there's a lot of talk in the hobby about investments. I don't know if it's the current hustle culture, or the finance bros or whatever. But flipping, going after cards just for the dollar. Talking about how you invest in certain cards. Um, some people are in it for purely for the profit, and that definitely changes how cards are priced and how they're sold and how they're collected. And somebody coming back into the hobby should know about that. So we'll also be kind of discussing those additionally on this podcast. And it all depends on what you're in it for, but you should know what's happening out there. And my little side note is it's not an investment. So treat it as a hobby, have fun with it, maybe make some money, but don't just plan on getting rich quick. All right. So I'm going to share 4 tips and some advice getting back into the hobby so you can get something out of this first episode with Cardboard Hobbyist. So, first a piece of advice is start with what you love. Maybe it was whatever your old collection and PC was. Don't jump right in, chase the hot cards if they don't mean anything to you, buying random boxes if they don't mean anything to you. I definitely kind of learned that lesson. I spent some money before I really learned the ins and outs of the modern hobby. But, pick a player, a team, a set, uh, sports, non-sports, just whatever kind of excites you, and start there. Buy a box or a pack and kind of start small while you're building up your hobby knowledge. Number 2, take it slow. And these are all a little bit related, but take it slow in the piece as far as the market's fast. You don't need to rush in, spend a fortune. Take your time, figure out what's what's worth collecting to you. And related to that's my number 3. And these are all similar and kind of related because uh, the hobby thrives on hype. So number 3 is beware of FOMO. Not every hot card today will hold value. Don't just jump in and buy thinking you're going to turn it around and flip it, sell it for higher price, or hold it till next football season and it'll double in value. It's possible, but like anything else, a lot of it's just hype, and it will probably lose value or at least not retain its value unless you got really lucky, especially as someone just starting back out in the hobby. And 4, definitely join the community. Online forums, local card shops, and even social media can be a great place to learn. That's where I've learned a lot is on YouTube, and I'll be sharing some of those sites in the future. Definitely, Instagram if you like the photos of cards or wondering what you're wanting to collect. Go down to your local card shop. I've met a lot of people and the owners from my local card shops. It's been very fun. Kind of got into One Piece, which is kind of a niche still in my area from going down to local card shops. So definitely kind of just get out there and join some of the community that's out there. And so, what's next for Cardboard Hobbyist? Each episode, we'll break down different parts of the hobby: buying, selling, grading, collecting strategies, selling strategies, and hobby trends. I'll also share my own experiences, mistakes, and wins as I get deeper into collecting again. Definitely have a lot to share in all of those areas over these past 6 months. And next episode, we're going to dive into the first big decision that almost every collector faces: what you should actually collect, whether it's interest, whether it's vintage or modern, sports or non-sports, graded versus raw, cheap versus high end. We're gonna try and cover it all in a few segments next episode. So thanks for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And I'd also love to hear from you. I'm just starting out, but I've just gone down a lot of rabbit holes. So hopefully I can answer some questions, or maybe together we can answer them on future episodes. So what brought you into the hobby? Questions you might have of the hobby, learnings that you've had over your time back in collecting cardboard. And feel free to shoot me a message at thecardboardhobbyist@gmail.com. And I'll also put up some social media handles and things. But until next time, thank you for listening and happy collecting.